I'm Ken Dante, the chair of the Energy Commission. Welcome to the new members. Thank you so much for joining. I'm doing this remote because I have a cold. I didn't want to give you my creeping crud. Nothing serious, but George, should we go around the table and
Sure,
just kind of give
around and
like a under a minute introduction? Your name, who you are, what you do, and why you're here. Okay, maybe something like that. 1 minute. I'm Ken Dante. I'm a retired engineer, semiconductor design, degrees in physics and electrical engineering. I moved. I'm a Puebloan, raised in Pueblo. Went away, worked, came back, and got involved in all these energy issues. So energy is what I'm spending a lot of my time on now. We can pass on to the next person. Why don't we do the people in the Zoom? So Nicole Ferguson, is that correct?
That's correct. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I am Nicole Ferguson. I am the Executive Director at Mariposa Center for Safety. I'm happy to join you. This will be my first meeting, so glad to be here.
Welcome. Mike?
Good afternoon. I'm Mike Wakefield. I'm at Hassan School of Business at CSU Pueblo, Director of the Healy Center, and very interested in energy issues in the community, and eager to be here at my second meeting.
Okay. Tyler, why don't you go ahead?
I'm Tyler Surratt. I am a Pueblo resident for about 8 years. Been in Colorado for about 20 years. I have 2 businesses. I own Steel City Solar, and I also own a business called One Tree Advisors, which is a tax shelter organization, and we raise funds for tax shelters.
Okay, thanks. Chuck, why don't we go with you and we'll just go around the table. So you can pass it on to George next. We'll go, but you do it first, Chuck.
Sure. Charles Fernandez. I just was recently appointed to City Council Monday night. I was sworn in. I've been retired, semi-retired. A couple of years I was a finance director for the city of Pueblo. Prior to that, up in Denver, I was the chief economist for the PUC. And prior to that, I spent 3 decades, 30 years in the utility energy industry throughout this country, testifying before numerous state commissions regarding anything and everything regarding monopoly utilities. Did a 3-year stint in Anchorage, Alaska, where I was the finance officer and a number of other titles for a natural gas company in Anchorage. So this penny's been around a lot, born and raised in Pueblo. And like you, Ken, many of us come back. And here's where I am. The mayor asked me to join this advisory committee, so here I am. I'll do the best I can to participate in what I know.
Thank you.
Alan, you want to go?
Sure.
Around Robin?
Alan Ward, been on the commission a little over a year now. My day job is I'm the water resources manager for Pueblo Water. I've been at Pueblo Water for over 26 years. And yeah.
I'm Michael Briscoe, sociology professor up at CSUP. My area is environmental sociology. So yeah, second meeting.
Just one turn. My name is Manuel Pacheco. I go by Manny. I'm a local realtor. Also part of ambassador for part of Latino Chamber of Commerce. Is the reason why I'm here. Noah assigned me to the table, and here I am, my first meeting, and looking forward to many more meetings and getting to interact with any of you guys and move forward with the project that we come up in mind.
My name is Edgy Walrath, retired from Xcel Energy, 37 years, retired IBEW, local 111. I was into distribution engineering, both in Denver and in here, and did a number of departments. I ended up my time here at the gas service center as a planner in the engineering department here.
Steve Naraki, former Pueblo City Councilman, was president of City Council 5 times over those 8 years, and been the CEO for the Senior Resource Development Agency, better known as SRDA, for the last 36 years. And actually, our first mayor, Radishar, had asked me to be part of this committee, and I was the first chair, and was lucky enough to have Ken that volunteered to be the second chair. So anyhow, it's good to be part of the group.
Hi, I'm Dylan Goodman. I'm a transportation planner for the Pueblo Area Council of Governments, MPO. And I'm on this board just because I'm very invested in energy issues and transportation issues, especially in relation to climate.
Hey, welcome.
Okay, I'm Thea Rodriguez. I'm a health promotion specialist at the Pueblo Health Department, and I work with resident-led coalitions in the West Side and Colorado City with support in technical assistance, capacity building, and strategic planning. And I've been part of this commission since January.
And I'm Tom Corlett. I'm a semi-retired lead professional, working on energy efficiency for buildings, that sort of thing. I come out of the design world. I worked at the Frank Lloyd Wright Foundation for a while. And since then I've been an advocate for renewable energy and all things renewable and efficient. I also am a member of the Colorado Renewable Energy Society's policy committee. We do a lot of work on legislation and that sort of thing. My family moved to Pueblo in 1951, so I couldn't wait to leave after I left high school. But like Ken, I returned some 14 years ago. I have a place in Rye, and we're very interested in helping Pueblo be a better city. I'm also working with Mike Wakefield on the strategic plan for this Energy Advisory Commission.
Good. Hi, I'm John Vigil, lifetime resident, native of Pueblo, Colorado, 3rd generation here. So just interested in all things related to this community, of course. But my day job, I'm a community affairs manager for Black Hills Energy, which is the electrical provider for the city of Pueblo. And yeah, I'm happy to be a resource to this committee. We are very entwined with the goals of the city because we're the provider, the electrical provider for them. So.
Hello, I'm George Andrews. I'm the City of Pueblo's Energy Efficiency Coordinator. I'm the primary point of contact for this commission. So happy to see you all here today. And we also have Mark that just stepped in as a guest who joined us. And online we have Iris Clark, a guest joining us, and then Laura Getz, who is the vice chair of the commission. And feel free to add anything else, Laura or Mark, but we do have a packed agenda today, and just want to remind everyone to stay on time and be aware of that. So I apologize for that, but why don't we go ahead and move on to the consent agenda now? Ken, can we call?
Okay, yeah. So basically what we're approving is the minutes from the last meeting. I think if anybody wants to add to the agenda, now is the time to do it. So if you have a special topic, I think we've got a lot of things to talk about. Anyway, so if I can get a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Everybody approve, say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Anybody that disapproves, say no. Okay, the consent agenda is approved.
Great. The next thing is committee reports, and that's usually led by Edgy and Alan. Is there anything?
Yeah, the policy committee has not met since the last commission meeting, so nothing to report.
And we haven't met either, but we were talking about changing it, and I think now's a good time for our committee to ask some of the new members they'd like to join. The committee, we've been working on a lot, along name, different names, but we're talking about energy efficiency for the city buildings for gas and electric, alternative energy for the city, like solar, wind, things that maybe they could use, and then the conversion. In order to reach our goal, the goal of this committee is to be rid of fossil fuels. And so that means a lot of conversion, and you know, that means the community too, not only these buildings here. So there's a lot for us to do and a lot of low hanging fruit. So if anyone's interested in that, maybe we can have some time, or we can do something online where I send an email to everyone and anyone that wants to be involved in it.
Yeah, the city passed a resolution that would be 100% renewable by 2035.
And that includes the residents and businesses.
Right.
So as you can see, that's
not just the city buildings, but.
Yeah, let me just make a statement too about our mission. Okay. So this commission is enacted to provide an entity through which the city may officially encourage and bring about a better and more effective use of energy in all forms with the city, to enable the city to reach 100% renewable energy by 2035, and to monitor franchise agreements and public utility commission proceedings with respect to energy insofar as they may impact the city. So that's the call of this commission. Okay. So it's kind of twofold. It's 100% renewable. It's also monitoring the utilities, because the utilities are the bodies that are going to do a lot of this. I mean, we have some, city does have some control of this. The other thing I wanted to bring out, Alan had asked for a reading on from the city attorney on how these outside committees can meet. Okay, and there is a sunshine law, and I think George distributed this just today, that basically says that if you have 3 or more people, we need to make these meetings public. So if we're going to have meetings like that, we probably need to get George involved and make sure that they're recorded so the public can hear them. Okay, that's kind of our responsibility, especially as we get bigger. I don't want to discourage people to meet outside, because once a month meeting, you can't get a lot done. But anyway, I'll give you back the agenda there, George.
Well, that would also include. Would that include emails also? I think there's something to do with correspondence also.
There is,
because
I'll get into that in just a little bit.
Okay.
But just so everyone is aware, so the Energy Commission is made up of the commissioners, and then there's also the subcommittees. And depending on who's interested and wants to put in the time, we can designate you to a respective subcommittee. And as Ken was saying, anytime there's 3 or more commissioners discussing business or potential action items, it does have to be posted publicly, and there cannot be any email correspondence that officially votes on matters. So it has to be all public. And so that's where I can come in as a bigger role to the subcommittee meetings, whether if there's a standing meeting every week or every other week, and as more subcommittee members join, then we'd have to post that through.
We would post our emails, is that correct? And
well, just the meeting times, but so not necessarily.
If it's an email, you won't have, if I emailed all these people here and they get back over the next few weeks, if I remember correctly, we just have to post those emails. Am I right? Because we can't post times, or do we need to deal with that? And we may have votes within our, like, what's the name, who likes this name of our committee? I think the voting just has to do as if it's voting officially through the commission.
I'd have to double check.
That's right.
Email laws.
I thought we'd send it out so that, we all know the best means of doing this.
So George,
So what's the best way to do this, George? Is it to, get you involved and you can make sure that we meet these policy requirements?
That'd probably be the best, just so we're in compliance. We don't want to get in trouble.
George, let me ask, Ken, can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So is there could there be a requirement that it needs to be in a public location when we have these meetings? Is there any reason why they can't be posted on a regular basis? Why would we not want somebody to show up? We're not going to be meeting in our house or in a bar or someplace. Why won't we have a location where we can have a regular meeting, so it's a little bit more formalized, and then always post when those meetings are going to be? That would save a lot of energy and time.
Yeah, I think, Steve, because I was a member of the policy committee, still am. When we met, it was always over Zoom because everybody's working. So, it made it convenient. I mean, we could make that meeting link public.
Yeah,
right. If there's a standing meeting like that, it would just have to be published.
Yeah.
To the civic clerk.
And just a reminder, Steve, you were on city council and they lectured you on that a lot. I think it has to do with decision-making things like, in the council, if you guys are gonna talk about building new buildings a certain way and stuff, and you're getting ready to come up vote. That's different than, you getting around and you guys are talking about bricks. What's the best bricks to use? So there's really are some issues, George, on this that, we need to know about.
Probably the city attorney's office could clarify that just a little bit.
Yeah, it's probably pretty well.
The simpler the better.
Look like George.
I did print out a couple copies of the sunshine laws. I don't have enough for everyone, but if you want to review them, you can take them home.
Yeah, I think that's probably enough on this topic because we've got so much to go through. So let's just be aware of that. The issue of if we get more than 3 people together, that we should be making these things public. Go ahead, George.
Next topic on the agenda, I do have a couple updates for everyone. I do want to share the screen as well for the people online. So just give me a moment to get what I need. So, okay. So I do have these updates here. I'm sharing this matrix in a sense that I believe are the 5 core pillars of the Energy Commission, and it's subject to change as part of the strategic plan, but I believe everyone is interested. It cares about transportation decarbonization, building efficiency and decarbonization, local energy production, community events, workforce development, and then local policy. And so when it comes to transportation updates, there's discussion right now for the Pueblo fleet to partner with New Day Hydrogen as a fleet partner. So we will be meeting next week to discuss that, what that looks like, if it's a good fit or a transition. And also I'm working on the Beam Arc sightings. If you recall from a few meetings back, those are the portable level 2 EV chargers that we are ordering. So I'm working on the sighting now, and those will be going to the Parks and Rec admin building, the fleet, the Brews Ale House parking lot, and then the PBR building. So those last 2 will be public facing chargers, and those are being made now. So we're just working through that ordering process. And then when it comes to the buildings, I have returned the MOU to the Colorado Energy Office for the energy performance contracting process that we were engaging in. So now we're working through the RFP process. I know that's a lot of acronyms there. So
George, I want to interject here a little bit, okay? We asked Andrew Hayes, working with George, to start the formal EPC process. So at the last council meeting, this was approved. The ordinance was passed to go do this for the city buildings, and my hope, and one of the future topics is gonna be Tyler talking about putting renewables. And Tyler,
then we can get to the.
But this is really important for us, okay? because this is something that the commission has been working on asking for a long time. I want to make sure that, people appreciate this. Because now we're going to go through this formal process, get an engineering firm to come evaluate our buildings. That should include, how we're going to, if the city's going to make its own energy, how we should do that. And in addition, to improve those, the envelope of those buildings, making them more energy efficient, and to electrify them too. So, okay, I'm sorry, George, go ahead.
The next piece is the water reclamation plant. I don't like to say wastewater treatment plant, but they did a sustainability study, and I believe I shared it with everyone. So they're looking at a couple projects that involve cogeneration, nutrient removal process, and optimizing their solar that they already have, and including additional panels as well. So that's still fairly early on, and there is opportunity for the Energy Commission to advise on that when that's more developed. When it comes to local energy, there's a proposal for a city aggregate solar project, and I'm going to give it to Tyler in just a little bit to explain more on that. But first, let's just finish these last bits, and then in the future, we'll be asking for a Black Hills ERP update when that is public, so we can understand how we can are impacted by that. When it comes to community events, June is bike month, so the city and the MPO are planning different events for the whole month of June, and June 26th is Bike to Work Day. So be on the lookout for different events for that. And there's also been discussion with Patio Linux and Michael's Energy and the Latino Chamber of Commerce to host a lunch and learn event geared toward business energy efficiency resources. So an event like that would be, we're talking about the middle of April for an event like that at the Latino Chamber's office. And then for our policy, we briefly touched on the sunshine laws that new members and existing members should be aware of. If there's more than 3, has to be publicly noticed. And then also for our newer members, I'd like to schedule a bit of a new commissioner orientation just to see how we can work together and sort of what pillar that you may fall under and how much time you'd be willing to commit to that, but also for existing members too, if you could be available for a one-on-one just to recalibrate and see your areas of focus and your purpose for the commission. And another aspect for local policy is looking at the different building codes. So if a REACH code or a net zero building code is to be adopted, it would have to go through the Pueblo Regional Building Department. It's not so much Public Works, but that may be a topic for another meeting. Before I give it to Tyler, are there any questions or comments about these 5 pillars? I see no questions or comments, so
I would just comment that if you do want to schedule us for a May 1st meeting for an update on the clean energy plan, we'll have filed the 120-day report by then.
okay.
So May
May
1st
1st.
would be a date that we could do.
Great.
You couldn't do this next meeting, is what you're saying,
I
John?
can't, there won't be anything public yet. The 120-day report won't be ready.
Okay.
I see Laura's hand is up.
You're muted, Laura.
Sorry, thank you. I just wanted to add for events. I don't know if word has gotten around that there's a grants and incentives workshop tomorrow at Pueblo Rawlings Library, all about electric vehicle funding opportunities catered. I believe it's catered towards our business community or anyone with a fleet, especially. Being hosted by Drive Clean Colorado. And then I was curious about the water reclamation facility. Is the city currently working with a consultant or whoever completed the report for them, or is that going to be rolled into the energy performance contract?
It was a report by Caldwell. I forget the other. It was an engineering corporation that evaluated the sustainability. And there's a section in there in section 2 that's all about energy. There's a lot in there. So I would encourage this group to read that section and think about what we could do in that wastewater plant. They gave a tour. Alan George and I were there to take the tour. It's interesting. I mean, there's a lot of things going on, a lot of biological processes. But natural gas comes out of that as a piece. It's not real clean, and they already have some solar, PV solar at that site. But they could use more. So there might be some creative ideas that would come out of this group on how to improve that and make that available for that plant and maybe other it could be aggregated outside of that business too. So.
And then another piece I forgot to mention, for Bike Month, I'm working with Public Affairs in the Mayor's office on a grant about e-mobility education and awareness. So for more of a workforce piece, we're looking at like a credentialing program to get more e-bike mechanics, and we're on the lookout for other workforce grants like that where we can provide some sort of credentialing opportunity for the public. And then I know Laura and Ken briefly shared a Department of Energy announcements for workforce development. So we're looking at that to see if that's a good fit as well. And then if there's no other comments or questions on this, I'd like to turn it to Tyler now to give us some updates on the aggregate solar proposal that he's been working on.
Sure. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Like I said before, my name is Tyler Surratt. I appreciate the time, George, and commission to be able to present this idea and project to you. And this started when George came on board. He asked me as owner of Steel City Solar to kind of look at some of the buildings that already had solar, or maybe identify 5 or 6 buildings that we could possibly put solar on, and how that could solve some of the energy usage needs. This project then grew because, like I said, another company that I do own and am part of is we raise funds for tax shelters, usually land conservation easements. We've done solar tax equity partners for the last 5 years. And that means that investors who have significant taxable income are more than interested in becoming a solar tax equity partner, where they get the tax benefits of the solar and they provide funds for solar projects. So I had an investor friend contact me, and he had somebody reach out to him that had significant amount of funds that were interested in large scale projects. So George and I escalated our 5 buildings and began looking at the city as a whole. Okay. And as a city as a whole, we've identified that we could probably build about 10 to 12 megawatts of solar, which would be aggregated solar. And if you understand that term, that means that it is a solar field placed somewhere. And then whatever it generates is aggregated to the energy usage of whoever owns that field. Okay. This is the most recent rule change in Black Hills territory, allowing for this to take place. And if you're familiar with the term power purchase agreement, it's similar to that as well. So what we have is an investor who is willing to fund the project at 100%. Okay. They'll fund the project at 100%. They ask for a power purchase agreement in return, about 10 to 15-year power purchase agreement. In exchange for that, we're working out the rates kind of right now. But it looks like on average, the city currently pays Black Hills 20 to 21 cents a kilowatt hour. Okay. The power purchase agreement would be in the neighborhood of 6 to 8 cents per kilowatt hour. So significantly reducing the city's overall cost towards energy. This 10 to 12 megawatt field would actually provide 100% current city's usage from Black Hills. Let's see. And so, basically almost cutting, monthly power costs or, the cost of power in half for the city. The nice part about this is that after the 10 to 15 year power purchase agreement, we're trying to align it with the 2035 date of becoming 100% renewable city. After the power purchase agreement, the asset would then turn over to the city at zero cost. So we are working right now. Basically, this project, our funding source is currently working on a letter of intent that could be addressed directly to the city, stating their interest in providing those funds. We estimate those funds to be around $15 to $20 million. And it is not a full payback of the funds because the investor is only interested in the tax benefits that comes from their invested funds, which they will then reap the benefits of those tax benefits.
And so just to
Did I miss anything, George?
Well, just saying this is a proposal for city-owned buildings, and that
right
aggregate use is about 10 to 12 megawatts, not the entire city as a whole. Just to clear that up.
Just the city-owned buildings, correct?
So what would be the next step? Securing the letter of intent, and then
I had some questions. If I could ask George, a couple.
Sure.
How big of a solar farm are we talking about, Tyler?
10 to 12 megawatts.
10 to 12, okay. And what you're asking for is that that this investor company get all the renewable energy credits from this. Is that what the ask is?
Yes, that would be the agreement that they would own the facility for the 10 to 15 years. The city would purchase power essentially from them, and that would be aggregated to the city-owned buildings' power usage. And then at the end of 10 to 15 years, that field would then be turned over to the city.
Okay. Let me tell you what my thinking is on. I mean, this is wonderful. Okay, it could be a great opportunity. I guess the city would save millions of dollars a month in this process too. Do you know what the savings would be to the city?
probably 2 to 3 million, 2 million per month on electricity.
Could you guarantee? Could this company guarantee that? I mean, or this new utility structure. The other thought I would have is that we're going to go forward with this energy performance contract. Can we make sure that this papers out with this organization? Because we're going to hire an engineering company to come in and evaluate the buildings. The electrical power demand may increase. We may be wanting more because we may do away with gas appliances and put in heat pumps, for example, in place of a gas furnace or a gas engine or something like that. So it'd be nice to comprehend that because we may want to build this bigger, right? to meet those plans. And I think this engineering piece only takes 2 or 3 months. So anyway.
Questions this time.
Sure, let's get to Laura. I see your hands up.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Tyler, sorry. It's great to be looking at this. My big question for the city would be, I'd want to make sure we also look at direct city ownership. Because with the passing of the Inflation Reduction Act, the city is now eligible for direct pay, which means you'd get a full 30% off of the cost of the system. And so if there was a tax equity partner involved in the PPA, often, they take a larger cut of that. And so there might be even greater savings to the city if the city owned the array at the end of the day and was able to claim the full 30% direct pay tax credit.
Let me speak to that just for a second, because that is a recent change in the Inflation Reduction Act. And I've been in this kind of business for quite some time. I've worked for a CPA firm. I've been a CFO consultant for forever in tax mitigation for over 15 years. The IRS is tricky that way because they decided to offer not-for-profits the 30% payback, so that they did not want to include solar tax equity partners, because a solar tax equity partner would be able not only for that 30% credit, the solar tax energy credit, but then they would also be eligible. What a not-for-profit would not be eligible for is the depreciation and tax deduction of depreciation. So along with the solar tax credit of 30%, you would also include the tax benefit of depreciation to the solar tax equity partner. And that's what makes it so cheap on the lease payback side of things, because essentially including those two items, the depreciation and the solar tax credit, a solar tax equity partner, for every dollar that they choose to invest in a project like this, are getting about $3 to $3.50 worth of tax benefits in exchange for that. So it's tricky with that, Laura, is the fact that if a not-for-profit chooses not to include a solar tax equity partner and take that payback, then the IRS is banking on the fact that they don't have to give the tax benefit of the depreciation of the system to anyone. And keep in mind that as part of the Inflation Reduction Act, that tax credit can grow up to I believe it's 60% by including other factors in that solar tax credit. So it can become significant if a project is done correctly. The only thing I'm aware of as part of the solar tax equity credit that can't add to the credit right now is American-made panels, because there's not a cell for a panel manufacturer manufactured in the United States currently. At the moment, they're all being shipped from overseas. So, but a well-designed field in a low-income area, and then also using proper payroll, such as prevailing wages, Davis-Bacon wages, and things like that, can add 10% each to that solar tax equity credit for that solar tax equity partner. So although nice that the city would receive a 30% payback, a solar tax equity partner would decline in participating because their money would not go as far. So, and we are talking about the letter of intent will state from this partner, and once we get that letter of intent, I'll be able to identify who this investor is. The letter of intent will state that they are willing to 100% fund this project up front. So this is $0 out of the city's pocket to build this, and in exchange, instead of buying energy basically from Black Hills at 20 cents per kilowatt hour, they would be buying the energy from the solar field at 6 cents. In addition to the 6 cents, there would be a 3-cent surcharge. It's called a wheeling rate, which is the transmission rate, and that would be agreed upon as well, as part of that agreement. But once we get that letter of intent and we get and we progress this project further with the city, then we can work out the finites of that agreement. But I've had significant conversations with this investor in providing this 10 to 12 megawatts. And Ken, your answer to growth, this particular company, they manage a lot, billions and millions of dollars of funds. And that's where their money comes from, is the fact that when they manage these funds, they also manage their investors. They also manage their tax mitigation strategies. And so they have about $100 million to invest in the space.
Great, thank you for sharing. Tyler, Charles, did you have any questions?
Yeah, I'll give you my some of my perspectives. Although I'm new to the group, I'm not new to this topic. So part of my journey in my 3 decades plus in the utility industry, I worked with private equity investors out of Wall Street. So I know what the needs are from an investment standpoint. And from my experience, this the utility, as John Veal's listening, and the cost of service, that the rates that the city pays, all classes, the depreciation and investment return is typically 30 to 35 years of plant life, if you will. Granted, some can last longer and so forth, but at the end of it, when you put it in the big bucket, it's basically about 30-year life cycle. Okay. And so with that, monopolistic investors, they're willing to, or the investors behind the utilities, okay, are willing to accept their return on their investment over a longer horizon. Private investor equity investors are looking at least half of that time period. So everything I heard is right on mark from my experience, and I have pretty deep bench in that. So then the question I have for John Veal, to take back to his management, because I'm not going to put him on the spot to ask him this question, but for a couple of things that, let's say this is 10 to 12 megawatts. Okay, let's say let's assume that may be 10% of their load. Okay, just to put things in context of a relationship. As a new city council member, I'm at large. What that does in utility regulation is they come back and reset the bench. So all those costs, the costs that the city, the rates that the city pays, has an embedded cost in it for all the infrastructure, including PAGs, right? Those costs are then you get reloaded in their next rate case. They have no choice but to do that. So the equilibrium here over time is going to get flattened out, but it's going to be an initial shock to Black Hills. I'm not here to advocate Black Hills. I'm just telling you how the regulatory process works. They have no choice but to come back. If they choose not to come back, then the rhetorical question for Mr. Veal to take back to his management for basically the abandonment of the infrastructure that the city is no longer paying to have its own basically services. What Black Hills has to do then is say, we had, let's say, $150 million revenues from the city. Okay, now we only have 120 million because we pulled out the 30. That's going to get reloaded upon everybody else so that they're made whole on the backside of it. Are you following me? I make that kind of.
We're going to pay.
So at the end of the day, the city does basically its own, anyway. So guaranteed Black Hills will get a wheeling charge because they have to use the infrastructure, the distribution system, in order to get the power to all the facilities of the city of Pueblo.
If you don't mind, the city has 2 20-year contracts they put together with Black Hills, and one of these, this is similar to Solar Garden, my perspective. I didn't know if you knew that. Look that up. They did it for 20 years. It's a solid contract. Every year it's been getting cheaper. I have no problem having this contract, but it should be renewable every year. And it should be based on what the current rates are at that, to a point. You know, you don't want to put them too much at risk, but it should not be a long one like that. As you know, when Xcel buys fuel, they don't buy fuel for 15 years or 20 years to run their
I've
plants.
bought fuel, I understand how that works.
Yeah, and also what Laura's idea is I really approve of that. We talked about it before. The city can fix rate a bond for a couple $1 million. A lot of the city people can invest in that, get interest on it. The savings they get per month would cover the interest plus take care of the rates by far, in my opinion. But I just wanted to add that and also let you know about those. If you could look up those previous contracts, and I think you'll get a little kick out looking at those.
Great.
George, I have a few comments just for a second,
All right, real quick.
if I can.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay, two things just on that. As a solar provider, we have a very close relationship with Black Hills. I have always said, you know, there's no way that you could possibly ever get rid of a utility, you know, in whole, because, you know, obviously there's transmission costs, and meters and other things as a utility. So in partnership, like we have had meetings with Black Hills, with a member of their team, and looking at this project, and even on our residential and other projects, we've always been closely working with them, and they've always, maybe contrary to popular belief, but they've always had, you know, the people of Pueblo in mind, like, and they do a lot of things that, you know, do help, on the renewable, side of things that goes unnoticed. And then also, like, to Edgy's point, you know, of a long-term contract and to the costs and things like that, I do believe, you know, that those finite details will be worked out, like, you know, if the project continues. And by no means, you know, like, does an investor like this need the additional, let me just say the power purchase money, the kilowatt hour per rate. It's an investment for them, and that is a return on investment. But the $100 million that they do, and they already know, in some of the tax shelters we do, they invest in those shelters, and the only return is the tax benefits. So they're very familiar with, you know, those types of things, but it's the fact that they're already getting a 4-to-1. They're avoiding 50% tax rates, keeping their monies kind of in a 25% bracket. By no means do they not pay taxes, but at the same time, you know, their idea of costs and payback may be a lot different. They're not doing this for an income type purpose. Their money is purely a tax play that they plan on spending somehow, some way, and getting a 3 to 4 to 1. So, but like I said, we are progressing with this. I do have a meeting with them in the next day or so to finalize that letter of intent, so that you know, that we can take this project seriously, in presenting it.
So Tyler, what does a letter of intent commit the city to?
Nothing. The letter of intent comes from the right now it's going to come from the funding source, so that we can present this to the city to say, hey, we do have this money in your pocket. Because sometimes I think people think I'm crazy when I, you know, approach a group of people and hey, I got $100 million for you, and I know where to get it, and it's not a government source or a grant or anything like that. Like, you know, this is real funds. So that's what this is going to say. Like, you know, basically that we have these funds, and we're willing to invest, and if the city's willing to look at this project, further down the line, a letter of intent from the city would be the fact that they are willing to explore this project further, and in looking at like bidding out and getting the project costs and things like that. We kind of already know the things. We've gotten some numbers from Black Hills. We begin to identify land. George and the city team has. We need about 50 to 60 acres to do this. and just kind of putting together these puzzle pieces so that we can present a full project without the finite details, yes, but right now we're just in estimation mode, but that's what we're working towards.
Okay. So I guess the way I'm thinking about this, right? We're going forward with this energy performance contract. We're going to hire a engineering company to evaluate how the city can improve their buildings. My hope, before your proposal was even introduced, Tyler, is that we, as part of this process, we could figure out how the city could own that generation, right? And put what you're talking about, in place, independent of an investor, right? This may make it easier. Okay, so maybe we can, we can kind of make the comparison if the city owned it versus your proposal, right? And maybe it papers out better with your proposal. Okay, if it doesn't, then we're, in other words, we're doing a little due diligence to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the city. Okay, you have any issues with that?
Not at all. Like,
Okay.
I attended the city council meeting. I'm highly interested in the performance contractor. We've done projects for those types of individuals in the past, for other counties and other cities, and been a part of those. They have very good ideas, and in reality, some things do come down to money, and they do come down to timing. And looking at a $15 to $20 million project, you're not going to get to 100% efficiency as a city by adding water pumps and heat things and things like that. You're still going to continue to use energy. Like efficiencies are efficiencies for a reason. They are best included with a power source project, and that's why they're always proposed. And typically when you look at those city buildings, I mean, look at the ones that the city does own. Your best idea is aggregation, because we just did 4 projects down in Huerfano County, and all they were allowed to put on was about 33 kilowatts, and they pretty much filled roof space on the 4 buildings that we so even though and that does not bring them to net zero, it only provides a certain savings to that. So in addition to, I do believe in the energy efficiencies and what the performance contract will identify. I do not believe that anybody will ever present you a source of 100% funded project.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, unless you funded yourself. This Huerfano project, was that in San Isabel or was that Black Hills?
We're getting off topic. Let's go ahead.
It was important because you said you were limited. Is it because it was a San Isabel project? They limit the amount of renewables you can put on?
It was a San Isabel project. That's their commercial limits.
Okay.
But at the same time, roof space and identifying the buildings that they would go on, there's only so many buildings that can fit megawatts of solar on. So, aggregation and the new rules inside of Black Hills kind of brings this project to light. And I think, George and I are going to continue to explore this and until we get further down the line that we can present a ample project to the city.
Okay, great. This is exciting. So, good. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler, for presenting and for everyone voicing their comments and questions. We'll go ahead and move on to the next part of the regular agenda. We'll spend the rest of the time discussing strategy, specifically SWOT analysis. This is something that Thea and I worked on Monday, and then I'd like to open it up to Tom and Mike to hear their thoughts as well. But this is just a draft here. So we have our ordinance creating the commission. The bylaws adopted on 12/6/23, a link to that. But ultimately, the mission of 100% renewable energy power for the city by 2035, and that's resolution 13/6/12. So just going over a brief SWOT analysis, strengths, diverse and passionate group knowledge. I think everyone's agreed and is here for that. We have a new mayor and there's new opportunities to write the future for what we want. And there's also federal funding available with the Inflation Reduction Act, bipartisan infrastructure law, Department of Energy. So we're looking at grants federally and what's applicable for the city. On the other hand, there's limited capital funding for projects available from city dollars. It's a different proposal that Tyler has. And then it's also, we have limited time each month. It's a volunteer commission and we may look at either increase in the frequency or something different. But also right now there's limited awareness for the PUC and how we intervene as a commission or the city. So I think we just have a stronger system in place for PUC intervention will be an important part for the strategy. But for opportunities, Pueblo is a disproportionately impacted community, a just transition community. It gives us a good position for federal and state dollars. And that would be either myself, and we have a grant administrator that is looking at different grant and funding opportunities. There's opportunities for educational events for both residential and business energy efficiency. There's also opportunity for workforce development training. If there's credentialing or training, we'd like to explore that. We're looking at beneficial electrification, and Pueblo has a great solar and water resource. And there's also the New Day Hydrogen project incoming. It has an opportunity to develop the hydrogen economy. One threat that I think we all agree is the discussion for pro-nuclear hijacking this commission. I understand that's its own issue. That's not the mission of this commission. It's to achieve 100% renewable energy power. But also there's a threat of the city council and community or mayor not buying into what we're trying to achieve here. So education and getting everyone to buy in for our work here is going to be important as we progress. And so now I'd like to just open it up to Tom and Mike to hear more about what they've been working on in terms of this, and if we can come up with the next steps. I think what I wanted to get from this meeting is if we could start designating people in sort of the pillars that they want to spend their time on and to have more structure, and also just to refine this SWOT analysis a little bit, and then we can go from there.
Well, that's interesting from my point of view. I can't speak for Mike necessarily, but I'd like to hear from him as well. My feeling at the moment is that we have a little confusion. That when Mike and I went to start working on this to try to bring an all-inclusive approach to bring everybody on board to start talking about these kinds of the SWOT process. I didn't feel we were really ready to do that yet, and we didn't want to presuppose by doing that ourselves. We'd like to see everyone commit to us to whatever group. I mean, I'm not trying to, neither Mike nor I are trying to take this on as a committee. We'd like to see everybody involved, and we have an idea of a process that I'd like to have Mike talk to, if he will. That will take some time to do. We can't do this in one day or one meeting or two meetings. So we feel, my impression of our feeling is that we would get everybody engaged to get all your ideas from not just 2 or 3 or 4 people. We did some of the same things. We have some things we can throw in the mix, but we'd like to really make sure that that's a very broad and inclusive process. So Mike, do you have some other comments to make about that?
Sure. The very last conversation that Tom and I had, we had a few over the last week. but was a concern about the mission, and I know that Ken had read the mission. And I was wondering if that was available anywhere. And there was also a possible concern that maybe the mission would be tweaked. I don't know how the new mayor is feeling about that, but any strategic planning process really needs to begin with the mission, because it will color almost everything else that we do. So I'd really like to understand what is our charge, what is our marching orders at this point. There's a lot of other things that will follow after that, but that would be the first step.
So the mission is posted on the Energy Advisory Commission web page on Pueblo US.
Yeah, I put the link in the chat today.
Okay, I see that. Thank you. Is that expected to be maintained, or is it going to be altered?
So I think that's a interesting piece that would come from this if we'd look to amend the bylaws or the mission when it comes to the strategic plan here. So it could be, right now that is the mission, but it could be amended in the future if that is what we decide to do.
Okay.
So Mike, I don't, I mean, the $6 million question. We went to meet with the Graham a couple of weeks ago. I forget the exact date. And we asked her if she had any questions, how we could help and all this. We talked, I talked a little bit, the other commissioners really didn't want me to talk about nuclear, but I did. There's been some meetings on nuclear that there's a lot of people against nuclear in Pueblo. I don't know if the mayor was there, by the way, so she heard it all. The only pro were the IBEW people saying they need the jobs, but these jobs are like 10 years in the future. So I think what we got to do is just assume that this is the mission and this is how we ought to go forward. And when we come, through the SWOT piece of this and kind of get to the the goals and objectives and all this kind of stuff, it's probably time to go in front of the city council in a work session and present that, what we're going to do, and then we can get validation from them. And if we need to come back and rethink some things, then we can come back and redo it.
Okay. There are a few different approaches that we could take, and one would be, if this is the direction that we want, put everything behind it. But I think it might also be useful if we look at side-by-side cost benefit kinds of comparisons of every energy source, and look at
that's done, by the way. I mean, you can go get the Lazard levelized cost of energy and compare these things. Okay. Nuclear is somewhere in the order of 3 to 15 times more expensive than renewables.
But not just cost, but also, what are the implications for society, environmental impact? So it's people, planet, profit. So there's, I think, a real cohesive, comprehensive evaluation could be helpful, especially if there's another entity that's pushing a different agenda.
Yeah.
Because I would really hate for some of the work that we're doing to kind of be dismissed because we didn't really consider all the pieces.
One other thing I'd like to add too is that when we had the resolution in the first place, it really meant that we were engaging with the utility at that time. And I think the utility has done a good job of pursuing that goal, actually. And we're sort of well on our way. I think there are other things that we can add to this mission, or at least a subset of it. And it could be modified, but in fact, we're well on our way to being in the 70 or 80% range with renewables. And rather than we can make up the difference in different ways. And I think we were well on our way to looking at that as well. But if we approach this from the SWOT point of view to start with, and we understand what kind of resistance we have in other areas, it very well maybe we go back to the mission a little bit and say, okay, it's gonna have to be shifted a little because we're maybe not gonna reach those goals. But there may be other ways to do it. We may have other opportunities in energy efficiency, and we're gonna have a new load with EVs and all sorts of other things. We're looking at electrification in buildings. So I think we need to take it over a timeline of where we are today, where we're going, and where we're gonna end up, and look at things like 2030 and 2040, because those dates are the dates we're looking at trying to work within. So I would suggest that we come back again with the timeline and a more inclusive approach that brings everybody engaged on the internet, with email to provide everybody's feedback on the SWOT side. Mike, you have a method of achieving this, or having everybody feed into something that you a process that you have, Mike? Is that right?
What you're talking about, the process, were you talking about the different elements, Tom?
Not the different elements so much, but the process of gathering SWOT information from a broader group of people.
Sure. I don't think that we've really talked about that, but there are ways that we could do it. We could set up chat rooms, some Google Docs, kinds of approaches. I don't know if the city has some methods that we could utilize, but I would like for everyone to have participation in that, so we could hear from all points.
My comment about this, SWOT stuff is I have a lot of input I want to, put forward. I could probably fill that table up, twice what's already there. The other thing too, that, thinking about what's going on with nuclear here, right? We're the city of Pueblo. We've got Black Hills as our utility. This nuclear discussion is with Excel. The energy doesn't even come to Pueblo. So, I think we can still go forward with the 100% renewable idea and not, with not much risk.
Okay. There are some strategic tools that we can apply too. So once we have the basic SWOT elements, then we can go through and weight each one of those factors and determine how well we're performing or could be performing on each factor, and quantify the SWOT analysis in a way that gives us a little more fine-tuned data. And then we can also structure it in something that would be called a TOES matrix. So we align, for example, SWOTs with strength with an opportunity or a strength with a threat, that would help lead us to very specific strategies. So there's a process that we can work through, but the big piece is getting those SWOT factors listed.
Yeah, and I think that would engage the group too, right? I mean, this is where we get an opportunity to talk about things that we're we want to see happen, and things we're worried about, the whole matrix. So this sounds great, because it should build the team too in the process, so we all feel like we have input.
If I may, most of our group, almost half of it now is new. You talked about an orientation. I think why we're doing this, we should also have meetings and discuss basic things of electricity and solar and some of the things that we're talking about. And we could probably do it side by side by this strategic planning. But whatever we decide, I would recommend that we have a strategic planning limited to a certain portion of each meeting, or have 1 or 1.5 meetings, because from the sounds of it, we need to figure out what the objects and goals are of our committee, and move forward. We don't want to spend, we meet once a month. We don't want to spend 3 or 4 months on strategic planning. This industry is moving so fast. You'll hear some of us has been on it, 2 months from now, everything we've talked about could have changed. And we have to react to the CD, or they're gonna lose opportunities. Like Laura mentioned, grants, Tyler mentioned that. If we're strategic planning for whatever long periods of time. And I think if we have it off this hour that we put together, try to meet, otherwise, we're never gonna get everyone on the same page, so.
And so maybe, I mean, we can do a lot of this stuff, offline through emails or, Google Forms or whatever. I'm okay with that. I mean, I guess there's a question from, do we need to keep this on city databases?
I don't think education has anything to do with sunset laws.
Okay.
But
my point is, I wanted to make one more comment to what you said, Edgy. If we need to have some additional meetings, let's do it. Okay. Let's let George get those arranged, so everybody can participate, and let's just do it. I don't want this strategic planning stuff to, I mean, it's going to take what it takes, but hopefully we can get through this with some urgency.
Yeah, Dick, I think that's true. What we need to do is make sure that we know where we're going from one meeting to the next. I appreciate what you guys did, trying to get something on paper and get it moved forward. But that's sort of like trying to get there pretty fast. We really need to get, the first part, I think we need to really get more information and then distill it to something that everybody agrees on, pretty much. So those are the, priority strengths, priority weaknesses, those kinds of things. So we really agree with it. Otherwise, we'll have, as Ken mentioned, we'll have a list, ad infinitum. So let's get to work on that right away and do it without having other meetings, and then report back in where we are after that time. Yeah. So I think we can pursue that, and if 4 of us want to work on it, that's okay too. Maybe, we just bring anybody that wants to be involved. We can set up, either set up a Zoom meeting or something like that. We can work to get the process laid out for everybody to understand where we're going, if that makes sense.
I would like to be aware of those meetings if you have them.
Anybody.
Okay, yeah.
If everybody wants to come, then it's another meeting, but
It's a public meeting. Anyone can come.
If a few people want to work on it and get it for the next meeting, or even let people know by email that if we've got something accomplished, that'd be great. I think we can do that. We don't need to wait months, or we can have an extra meeting if you want to do it. I don't think we want to necessarily, we just want to lay out a process and then let everybody get engaged best we can. But it can't, I think it wouldn't be a really valuable process, I think, if we don't do it precisely, if we don't do it well. So let's get after it, and I guess what we should do is see who wants to be engaged. And then we'll create a Google's group, for instance, and then that way everything we do is available for everybody else to see.
Right, so, it's a volunteer commission, everyone has lives outside of this, and at this point, it's really just dependent on who is available and who wants to work on this, and then as soon as we outline a process, it would be important to reach out and gather everyone's input, because some people have other time commitments and, other people are more or less available than others. That's just another piece.
So what's the next step?
Well, my point of view, I think you've laid out a process that I like, for instance, and we should share that with everyone at some point very soon, if that's, at least that's a starting point.
Okay. So we don't have to wait. We don't have to wait till our next commission meeting to do this, right?
No.
We can just yes. Okay, good.
No, I think we do it right away. If Mike, if we haven't really looked through that in terms of presenting it yet, because we weren't sure what was going to happen. with all the changes that have gone on in government at the moment, we had no idea what was actually gonna come about. So if it's okay to move ahead, at least with what we have, let's do that. And get the process out so everybody look at it and get comments back. And then immediately start working on a broader SWOT process that we have a process of eventually getting it worked down to a smaller and more precise group of elements for all the SWOT elements. So I'd say we just move ahead and get it out to everyone right away.
Via email?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
We'll set up a Google Docs or Google's group so that everybody can be, if you want to be in the group, you want to see what's going on, you can look at it.
Okay.
Well, we do have a commission. I see what you're saying. So you could send messages and it would be stored in that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, until we get this going, email and then that out. If somebody has a particular question from one person, just email back to them. But there's no reason for us, like when you email,
Yeah.
you don't want me and everyone saying, oh, great idea. Now you've got 30 emails. And so if there's a particular one, and if someone has a point, they bring it back to you, and then you email us all. So we're all working that way until we get a site set up that everyone can get on and knows how to use it and wants another social media chat room. I think that's what we're gonna see. A lot of people, aren't gonna visit that, but that's just my opinion.
It may work out that way, but I think if it's worth, I don't see it being a forever thing, except strategic plans shouldn't just go in a drawer and stay there. We should constantly be reviewing those things. So one of the things we should review is the mission as we get through this to see if it fits. I mean, it can work backwards. I mean, it's a loop. And if we get into too many of these things and we look back at the mission and say the mission isn't really appropriate, I got to say that the mission originally wasn't necessarily thought out the way we're thinking it in terms of a strategic plan. So
I agree completely. And I think the best way is put on the agenda 5 minutes before every meeting. We talk about the agenda or the strategic goals, the objects that we want to cover and things like that. Just make it 5 minutes. We're all educated. Plus, because that way we'll never forget about it. If you put it in, some group, half of us may not understand. So,
yeah, well, we see who responds and what your interest is. I mean, there's going to be some higher interest and some,
And you're talking about their interest in strategic planning or getting our mission completed.
It kind of includes everything. Gee, I think, the plan, kind of drives, the mission or the mission drives the plan. And you build goals and all this from it. So it kind of keeps you focused, right, on doing the important things.
So I think there's a couple of things that could be done simultaneously. So one is, trying to push to find out what the mission is. The other might be if Tom and George and I might talk about how we could gather information from everybody and get that set up.
Okay.
And then I've also laid out some steps, I think that Tom was alluding to, things that we could gather information externally that aren't necessarily part of the SWOT, but that will be important in developing the strategic plan. We could probably do all of that before the next meeting, laying out the steps, setting up the system to gather information from each of you and trying to finalize what our mission is.
Okay. We also, we have Chuck Hernandez on our commission. This is the first time Chuck seems like he's going to participate on this, right? So that'll be good. So we have a communication path into the council. George can help us with the mayor. So if we have questions, to those groups of people, let's ask them. Let's not assume. Let's get the answers. I think this will be good. What I'm hearing is going to be something good.
Yeah, I think as a result of some of the changes that have happened in the city recently, and there are a lot of them, the council and the mayor and a lot of other folks, I think it's really the time to engage those people as well in this whole process and see if everybody agrees. Because I thought there was a real chance that the commission might not even exist. Just because there was not a good understanding of what we were doing.
We're doing some real important things in this commission, okay? We've gotten the city to build net zero fire stations, okay? To consider future buildings being built that way, which means they're very energy efficient and that they're gonna run on renewable energy, okay? You know, this idea of nuclear is out there, kind of corrupting things a little bit because it's so far out in the future. You know, we're not going to build a nuclear reactor to power any of these things because we can't. Okay, this all depends on the PUC, and it doesn't make sense for Black Hills territory to do this. So that's just my perspective. I think we can go forward with these things. I mean, we're going to do this energy performance contract stuff. Tyler made a proposal on how to power the city buildings and save the city millions of dollars a month. I mean, that's massive for for a city like Pueblo. That's massive. So we're doing some, I don't think there's any other commission. I mean, other commissions are important. Okay, I mean, they're doing important things, but I don't think other commissions are going to create revenue streams to save the city money. Okay, they're gonna spend money. We're gonna save them money. Okay, so this energy component in this transition to clean energy is there's massive opportunities. So it energizes me, and this is why I'm working on these topics, because this is good. This is good for the city. This is good for humanity. So we're doing some important work. Are we done on this topic? Because I want to touch bases with our visitors if they had any comments or questions.
Our visitors?
We've got a few here that aren't in the commission.
Is there any visitors here? Oh, here they go.
A visitor.
Thanks for sticking around.
Oh, I've really enjoyed hearing everybody chime in on, I agree, this important issue, and saw some of your faces. I zoomed in on the meeting the other evening. So I don't feel available to join the commission, but I am certainly an ally and somebody that can step up and possibly do some project type things. And so that's kind of where I am. One thing I was going to chime in on, and it may or may not be what you want to do, but I have participated in a couple of strategic planning situations where we sped the process along by just sending out the SWOT analysis to individual members and letting them fill it out. And what happens is everybody, there's a lot of overlap. So instead of spending, hours kind of battering that out, it gets you down to some things that are priority and agreed upon, and then you can move on to the action planning and the objectives and things. So I don't know if that's helpful. But anyway, it's nice to see everybody and nice to see your hard work, and thank you for letting me zoom in.
Yeah, anytime, Iris. This is an open meeting, and I really appreciate your willingness to help if we see something. So we might take you up on that.
I'm happy to do that.
Okay. Anybody else who's visiting the commission want to say anything? If it's okay if you don't.
I will do a little more research before I say some comments. I like to speak facts and not just speak out of the air. Being new, I would like to do my own research a little bit and before I put my input. But one question I do have, everybody talking about saving money for the city and on all this kind of good stuff. So would these savings be transferred into the consumer, or would the consumer will not see the savings that we're doing for the community, how we're doing for the Pueblo?
Yeah.
For the Pueblo.
So for the EPC process, it would, I guess, the funds not spent on electricity would go back into the city reserves or the general fund. So it would be used for other city budget needs.
So I would, say this energy performance contract, we're using the Colorado Energy Office, which is available to anybody in Colorado. Any business or nonprofit can do this. So, if the Latino Chamber of Commerce wanted to do one of these studies on their buildings, they could do this. That the concept is this, that you commit to hiring a consultant to evaluate, your buildings, and they come back and give you a solution that's going to save you money. So then, if you decide to not go forward, your risk is that you owe that contractor their time, which is probably not cheap. In the ordinance, we committed $150,000 to this project, but I'm sure the city is much bigger program. Black Hills might be able to help you too, to do a not as thorough of a job, but a similar thing. So that's available. And like George says, when we save the city money, if you're getting funds from the city, it relieves some of the pressure too, right? So it's up to this, the mayor and the council to decide how to spend their savings. But I think everybody in the community should be doing these energy efficiency improvements to their structures or to their businesses. I'm trying to go through this and set the example as a resident. I'm doing a lot of these things in my home. My carbon footprint is really low because the only gas I use is my furnace. Everything else is electric. And I have a solar array on my home, so I make all my own energy. I drive an EV. Now these, people may think that these opportunities aren't available to them, but Colorado has a lot of incentives to get people in EVs. Laura probably knows this the best.
So at the beginning, we're planning a lunch and learn event with the Latino Chamber that we'll discuss.
So yeah, and I have more questions for you then.
I guess, the commission, we haven't really focused on the residents yet. Okay, we're trying to get through the city infrastructure, and then I think the next step is to deploy these things to business and residents.
Yeah, I'm out of habit thinking ahead. It just, I just want to get my feet wet with where we were at and where you guys were at when it comes to all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, the best energy is the energy you don't use. Okay, so if you can save yourself from using stuff, you've made a major improvement.
We just have a couple more minutes before we're at time. Do you have any other comments?
I do just have one comment I want to share with the group. I just forwarded to you. I just got an invitation for a stakeholder meeting for our demand side management program. That's a program that we file. So it's demand side management means energy efficiency. And so this meeting is about the plan design, what's available to individuals, to small businesses, and to industrial customers underneath that plan. So I just forwarded that to you. If you'd send it out to the group. It is going to be at 11 o'clock at the library on the 12th of this month. So you'll get that. Certainly feel free to attend if you'd like. I'm sure there'll be some additional outreach, but that's available for your input.
Before we go, I talked a little bit about this. I just want to throw out a couple tidbits because I've got my taxes done, so I know exactly what I've gotten back from. So I put a heat pump water heater in my home. I had to actually send Isabel do the project work because they have this Empower group that does this. It's not cheap. I had to do some upgrades to my electric panels. I had to put a sub panel in. That costs a lot of money. It's about $1,000. So my total cost in that was about $6,000. I got $800 back from Black Hills, and $1,200 back on federal tax incentives. This was for 23. In 24, there's some Colorado incentives for that too that would make that even bigger. Probably another $1,000 or so. So you could almost pay half the project. The other thing I did is I put insulation in my attic, and I got a Black Hills rebate, and I got a federal rebate, and I got a state rebate on it. It paid for about half of that cost. So there's a lot of a lot of this money's with the Inflation Reduction Act. So you have until 2032 to do these things, but if you have a gas, I replaced my gas water heater with a heat pump water heater, and it's much more efficient. And if you're making your own electricity, then it makes it's like a no-brainer to do these things.
After you.
Anyway, I think we're done. We can go ahead and adjourn the meeting now if we're okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
And yeah, thanks to our guests too for attending and taking the interest in this group.
Yeah, new members.
You see, I'm a little.
Yeah, I just.
Yeah, I think that I connected him as on a. But yeah, if you would please just. Let me know if you have any problems and resend it over. A little just saw this.
Awesome, thanks.
Questions, but yeah, if you ever want to talk more about this stuff and how it affects your business. Did you say you're?
Yeah, I don't think that'll be
you're the chief?
So
you're not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, so, yeah.